Hey there everybody, it's Mark Crowley. I'm back with another How to Draw video. This is number 10 in an ongoing series of videos on how to draw animals. I've had a video on how to draw a wolf, how to draw a kitten, how to draw a fish, and today I'm going to be showing you how to draw a leopard. Now what we have here is a perfect square. It is around 4 3/4 inches on all sides. That comes out to almost exactly 12 centimeters. So once you've got that square in place, what you'll want to do is place a dividing line here vertically exactly in the middle. Okay, so I'm going to add just 2 lines here, just very slightly diagonal lines that are going to divide this square roughly into thirds, and one will help me for placing the eyes, the other for placing the nose. Okay, now this video is a little different from some of the other ones I've done. Very often I've just had the face looking straight at us, so it's perfectly symmetrical. This time I'm going to have the leopard facing off in a sort of a 3/4 point of view. So let's begin by working on the contour of the leopard's face. Okay, so you can see it's just sort of a curving line that starts right up here, comes across, and it almost meets where that line intersects here. It actually just sort of crosses past and then touches the left-hand edge of the square right around there, then curves back a little. Now, I want to draw the nose. I'm going to begin by putting a triangle right around here. Okay, so you can see I've made just a very kind of exaggerated triangle here. We'll be refining that later into the more accurate drawing of the nose. But pay attention to how it doesn't quite touch that left line and then sort of has a diagonal slope coming up the snout. What do I always call it? The snoutal region, as it begins to curve into a line for the eye. And so, you know, speaking of the eye, let's go ahead and draw both of the eyes right now. So notice 2 things about the eyes. One is that they're different shapes. This one is really more of just an oval-like shape, and this one has more of a teardrop shape coming to a point. It really has to do with the point of view, the angle that we're looking at the animal from. And now I think it's time to go ahead and finish off drawing the mouth and the jaw. Okay, so you can see how I started at the point of the nose, curving down here. This line sort of echoes this line up here. That might help you for getting the angle right. Conveniently goes very straight across the bottom of the jaw, right along that original line, and then just comes and barely crosses over that center line. Then, of course, you have the cleft upper lip, and notice that the mouth is considerably closer to the nose than it is to the jaw. Well, let's go ahead and place the ears. Alright, so I decided to go ahead and finish off the shape of the head, but first the ears. Notice this one sort of triangular in shape, nearly touching that upper line. This one at a, we're seeing it from a different angle. It's crossing over that upper line and considerably less triangular looking. One thing I noticed as I studied photos was this sort of interesting shape here over on the back of the head as it curves, or sort of has an indentation, and then comes down here and flattens out very much like the jaw right there. Well, I think it's almost time to stop with the time lapse. I'm going to do just a couple of more lines around the eyes, maybe get a dividing line here across the forehead, and then finish off the neck. Alright, well, this line here is going to help me get in a sort of area of white that I observed on some leopards' eyes, and there's not actually a line going down the middle, but it'll help me sort of organize the spots later on. And notice how strong the neck is, comes way up high, and getting that distance there will help you get that final line in there. And I think now we can finally knock it off with the time lapse. We can tell old man time lapse to go get a cup of coffee. Oh, I could really use a cup of joe right about now. And that means that we can do some real-time drawing. I'm going to zoom in here, and we'll start working on adding details to the eyes. Okay, so let's begin by adding the pupils, which are going to be, what's the opposite of dilated? Undilated? Anti-dilated? They're going to be quite small, I believe. In the daylight, the pupils would get quite tiny, so as to not allow too much sunlight blinding glare of the sun into the eyes. Notice the placement here. This, in the 3/4 point of view, this pupil is considerably to the right. Over here, a little more dead center, at least in the photos that I looked at. Maybe a touch closer to the top, but side to side, not so exaggeratedly off to one side as it is on that other eye. And what we want to do now is get in an area of black, a shape of blackness that goes right around the edge of this, as I said, sort of teardrop-shaped eye. And this area of blackness kind of comes off to one side a bit like this. You can see me sort of having it extend. To me, it reminds me a little bit of like the Egyptian pharaoh illustrations with that heavy kind of eyeliner kind of a look. But then coming around here, from this point of view anyway, it's quite thin as it comes across, and then it thickens up around the area of the tear duct. At least for human beings, it's the tear duct. Not sure if that's the right terminology. You know me, I never know any terminology for anything. But there's quite a huge extended black area right here. Again, kind of protruding off of the tear duct, the tear ductal region. I'll just invent my own words. Why not? I have a long, grand tradition. When you don't know the word, just invent one that doesn't exist. So this shape here is really quite pronounced, I noticed as I studied photographs. And you're not going to see it so clearly on this side from this 3/4 point of view, but you are going to get a pretty strong indication of it as it curves around the bridge of the nose. And so let's go ahead and darken in all around here. Now I can tell you right now, there's going to have to be, time-lapse aplenty later on in this video. You can see how long it's taking me just to do the eyes. I can't, if I spend this much time on every single part of the face and fur, we'll have a 3-hour-long video, and I just can't do that. But while we're over here, I do want to point out something. This curved line of the forehead is a little bit of an exaggeration in terms of the actual structure of the forehead. So what I'm going to do right now is sort of erase away a little bit and show you how I would refine this a bit with sort of like the brow, just above the eyes, maybe some indication of the skull underneath there. So you can see how it sort of dips in and then comes up here to where the ear is, and then maybe just a slight angle as it comes across and rejoins that line. So yeah, sort of refining that contour there. I'm going to just go ahead and get rid of that. Well, apologies there, folks. Sometimes I just forget the focus of the camera, and so you probably were not able to see the upper extensions of that line there, but here you go, having refocused the camera. For National Refocus the Camera Day, you can now see what I did there in its entirety, and we might as well go ahead and get an extra line here for the ear, so you can see just maybe a hint of the upper edge of the ear. And then over here as well, maybe just get the edge of the ear in place. There's going to be a lot of fur across this ear section, although I think I might sort of get a little indication of structure here, where the ear joins the head. But yeah, it all is going to end up getting quite obscured by tufts of fur that come out of the ear. I've noticed that with cats, that there's almost always quite a bit of fur inside the interior of the ear, something I'd never really noticed until I started studying photos of cats. And indeed, the structure of the face of a leopard is surprisingly close to that of an actual house cat. But I feel like I may have missed something here in terms of the eyes. Yeah, I guess what I want to do is sort of erase away here and show how the purpose of that line really is just to give us a sense of where a white area forms near the eyes, at least on some breeds of leopard. And so that's what that's all about. There's not really a hard dark line there. It's more just that's sort of delineating an area of whiteness. And probably toward the end of the video I'm going to pull out my old beloved white gouache and really lighten that up quite a bit. I feel like this top area here could be thinned out even more. Get that shape right. And so over here as well, this is really just a delineation of a whitish area. And maybe now, let's. I'm going to refocus the camera so that we can start working on drawing the details of the nose. All right, so as I said earlier, this triangle is really rather exaggerated, but it helps you sort of place the lines, and we can sort of refine them into something that's a bit more anatomically accurate. One thing that I've noticed is that a lot of animals, not just, I think the wolf had this as well. I'm sorry if I'm misremembering, but you know, you have the nostril over here, but there's this area off to the side that curves up like so, and it's quite pronounced. Especially from this point of view, this three-quarter point of view, this sort of extra area in here, this all gets sort of blackened in, but I believe someone in the comment section on one of my videos said that helps for pulling in scents from the side, you know, that having the shape of the nostril helps for pulling in, you know, the sense of smell is, I'm sure, key for the survival of the leopard. Start acting like I'm some kind of expert. In any case, yeah, getting in that, this is something that I think you don't notice too much when you just sort of draw a leopard from your imagination, that extra contour. Now let's go ahead and get a central line that divides the nose in two. Of course, from the three-quarter point of view, you're going to see more, considerably more of the nose on this side than on the other. In fact, I think I'm going to widen out this nostril, make it a little larger. And yeah, because he's in a three-quarter point of view, we're not going to see that other nostril really at all, but we can, by way of the contour, suggest its presence by sort of carving away a little area here. Now, I was surprised as I studied photographs how much this triangular area really does come down to a point where, you know, what I was calling the sort of cleft upper lip, this area of darkness joins in a pretty bold way. In fact, you can kind of take this whole area here and turn it into a single area of darkness that comes right down like so, and then splits in two. Now I'm going to go ahead and darken in, you know, the mouth is not open, but you can kind of see in there a little bit from this point of view, the far edge. So that allows me to sort of refine this contour just a touch. And it's probably a little early to start getting into matters of the fur, but rest assured later on I'm going to be devoting some of the video to talking about the fur, and in particular the direction that it all heads in. Oh, here's an area down here. Yeah, I'm still in frame. Now I'm paranoid that I'm going to be teaching you all this stuff that you can't see because it's out of frame. I noticed in a variety of different photographs, so I have to assume that this is common among leopards, this area of darkness down here, I'm going to start to delineate it right coming down to the edge of the lower jaw, I guess. And then all in here, this whole area right here on at least a number of breeds of leopard is quite dark and showing up almost just as jet black in a lot of photographs. It's an area covered with fur, but covered with black fur, evidently, because you just don't see much detail down there at all. But I never really noticed this until I started studying. And, you know, later I'm going to pull out my black Prismacolor and really go to town darkening in this area. And yeah, I'm not real clear on the definition, what the shape of this black area is, but I did notice it extended quite a bit through this whole region here. I think maybe it does sort of come to an end like that. And now it's time, I think, to start getting in these sort of rows of black dots. I noticed that there were 3 that were quite pronounced, and they have a very slightly S-shaped sort of line structure here. Now, this is not, it looks like I'm drawing whiskers on him. That's not the case. This is going to be turned into a series of black dots that it seems to me are related to the whiskers, where they emanate from this snout region. So these 3 lines are going to help me figure out where to put these dots. Now, they get quite big. Well, I'll just start in the middle one here to show you what I noticed from photographs. Again, quite big, bold black dots. I think this is different from some of the other animals that I've drawn, how bold these areas are. In fact, the dots sort of touch one another. So it almost, you feel kind of like you're drawing a sort of caterpillar-like shape in here. Again, you know, there's probably different breeds of leopard, and this does not necessarily apply to all of them, but it did seem to be a noticeable characteristic from my point of view, something worth paying attention to as you draw. So you can see me adding in the, again, nearly touching, sort of blending into one another, these different areas. I did notice a secondary region of dots just a little closer to the actual nose itself, and these ones seemed more separated. And over here, the whole thing is curving away from you from the 3/4 point of view, so you're just going to sort of suggest maybe. As I said, there's sort of like these 3 dominant rows, but I think there is sort of the suggestion of you know, sort of secondary rows down here. But yeah, over here you can't really see them so clearly. They're just sort of curving around. And I do want to get these similar sort of freely spaced dots that correspond over there. So many details to pay attention to. Oh, and then also this area of the nose probably needs a little shading in. So we get that in place. And I noticed, again, at least in some photographs, a bit of speckling occurring, little dots here and there on the nose, and just fairly randomly placed. I didn't perceive any pattern to speak of. Now down here beneath the upper lip is a shaded area that I think is really actually the flesh, the lower lip, which becomes a little bit visible, at least in some photographs. But it is fairly hidden in shadow. And down here is where I saw sort of splotchy areas of black, and he does have sort of like white facial hair. It almost would remind us of a beard that increasingly gets thick at the very bottom. In fact, maybe now it's time to start talking a little bit about the direction of the fur. So I'm going to start doing that. I'll go ahead and plunge into drawing the details of the fur, coming out to the left, and then sort of all along this edge. I'm seeing the hair coming down, almost like like a clock face, as it curves around here. Now this is white hair. That's what makes it a little tricky to draw it, because I'm using a sort of the gray of a pencil actually to suggest the contours of what are white hairs, and so yeah, you're sort of faced with, without having a dark background to show this against, how do you suggest the presence of white hairs? well, I'm sort of cheating, I guess, is what I'm doing. I'm sort of using the gray to help convey that contour line of the face, but then also erasing away here and there so as to not have it look too dark. Anyway, we're going to keep working on that as time goes on, but I wanted to talk a little bit about the direction of the fur all across the face. And again, like I said, I can't really do all of this in real time, but I'll give you just maybe a few pointers in various regions. Like right here, I noticed in photographs coming off of the eye that the fur was sort of extending, again, sort of clock face style across this area of the eye, and then it begins to curve up. Now all of these hairs are quite short. I'm going to go ahead and erase that initial guideline while I'm at it here. All of these hairs quite short as they go all across the face. This in contrast to a number of the other animals that I have drawn. It seems that other animals, the area of the snout, the hair is very short, but then those hairs will get increasingly long. On other breeds of animals, I saw as I studied these photos that the hair remains quite short all across the entire face of the leopard, and that I think is in contrast to many of these other animals. But you can see that I'm paying attention, even as I draw these tiny little lines, to the direction that they're pointing in this area mainly pointing upwards. But then, like I was saying, this coming across here, it seemed that they begin to actually point down, and across the snout area here, they get very short indeed. And sadly, this is just going to have to be an area that I refine in time-lapse. It's just, you can see it just becomes almost way too time-consuming to do all real-time in video form. But I wanted you to get a sense of the direction that things are pointing in. I mean, it occurred to me, again, as I studied these photographs, that the hair is almost like aerodynamic. You know, you would imagine with the way they make cars these days, making them aerodynamic, paying attention to the wind blowing across the car. It seems to me that the hairs on a leopard's face are sort of aerodynamic, pointing back across the sort of cheek area here. So, yeah, this is maybe gives you hopefully enough information about the direction that all these lines point in, and all across there, you know, sort of maybe pointing up diagonally as you get into this area. All of this stuff I'm going to have to do later on, sadly. And that kind of brings me to the end of that part of, you know, the facial features. I want to now start paying attention to the spots. That was part of my, you know, what attracted me to the idea of doing a leopard video was figuring out the leopard spots. So let's sort of refocus the camera so we can see the entire face. Okay, so the pattern of a leopard spots, I'm sure is different. You know, each individual leopard is going to have its own pattern. And indeed, it's not a super clear pattern on any of them. There's a sort of a random-like nature. But I did notice that there's this central area across the forehead, and that's why I put that line in there. And so I'm going to begin in a fairly impressionistic way to just put a sort of blur of spots almost coming down across the face, following that line. Now, as you draw the leopard spots, I think you have the opportunity to convey some sense of the form of the head. Now, I'm not paying too much attention to the direction of the hairs at this stage, but I probably will be later on when I go back in with the black Prismacolor. But anyway, I wanted to point out how, you know, I'm making these narrow spots as the head curves away from view. And as we come down, you know, across the forehead so that it's more facing towards the viewer, these spots become more spot-like. They're not these narrow strips that you see up here. You're going to see them from a little more of a dead-on point of view. In terms of the shape of the individual spots, I noticed that not very many of them are a perfect circle. So I would say stay away from that. just sort of make them unusually shaped. I think you can feel a certain freedom to play around with different shapes, the spacing of them. Like I said, I did not perceive any super regular pattern in terms of the placement of the spots. But I did notice that, like over here on some breeds, you would see a sort of cluster of darker areas. Sort of like a cluster of spots, almost, rising up from that kind of inside corner of the eye. And maybe across here, at least one of the leopards that I looked at, one of the photos that I studied had what seemed to be a little bit of a streak of spots that framed one side of the eye. But I would say mainly in terms of drawing the spots, paying attention to the angle of the head, especially if you're going to do a 3/4 point of view. You don't want a round spot like this right there, no, because he's facing away from you. It's always going to be a little more of like a side view of each one of the individual spots. And so, the more you pay attention to that, I think you will be rewarded with a very three-dimensional look towards the end of your drawing. Even like a spot that's curving a little bit, suggesting the structure of the bone structure underneath. And there probably is a roughly symmetrical, if you've got like a cluster of spots right here, you're probably also going to have some sort of roughly similar cluster over here. And let's see what else, because there's just, again, no way that I can do all of this real time. But I guess I did notice that over here, across the whole area of the snout, I didn't see any spots at all. So that is a spot-free zone. And I'm just sort of shading it in. Later on, I'm going to pay more attention to the like individual hairs and stuff. But I noticed within the photo of at least one leopard that I looked at that there was that the hairs lightened up as they reached the actual nose. But yeah, this whole area I didn't see. Maybe a few spots between the eyes, but no actual spots on the snout itself, which I found sort of interesting. Some photos I saw quite a pronounced dark area right here beneath this shape of the eye. And that can be also kind of helpful for giving a sense of the structure of the snout. I hope I'm using the right word, snout. Is it a snout? I never know the words for anything. Across here, I noticed smaller spots, and nearer to the eyes, the spots seem to be smaller, almost sort of pellet-shaped. And then as you get further and further away, they seem to grow in size, and you get larger spots over here. Now, I just am becoming aware, more and more aware as I do this video, how long it's going. It's taking me so long to attempt to teach this stuff real time that I just fear I'm going to end up with a super long video, which can be a little hard for some people to take. So I think it's time to maybe do one last thing real time. Let's focus on the ears. Darkening in this area. I talked about earlier the sort of tufts of hair. Let me refocus so you can see this a little closer. So yeah, I'm darkening in this sort of upper area of the ears, but I did want to sort of point out about the big tufts of fur here that really sort of obscure the interior surface. You really can't see very much of the interior, and so what I'm darkening in here is sort of a suggestion of this sort of gap between all the fur that allows you to see into the ear just a little bit. But I wonder if there's sort of, if having that fur sort of is a way of keeping the ears clean, stopping things from going inside insects. I'm not sure. Maybe some of you know and can explain to me. I noticed in some breeds a dark area here behind the ear. And as that comes down, you sort of get back into an area of spots. And similarly, as I said before, you're going to, by having these sort of get narrower side to side, you can help give a sense of the structure of the head. And I'm afraid that is probably all I can do real time. My apologies to those of you who hate time-lapse, who curse old man time-lapse, and wish that he never came around. Me, I'm a big fan of old man time-lapse. He helps me out. He helps me keep these videos under 3 hours. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it into time-lapse and finish off all of the fur, the spots, all this stuff, and maybe come back and do a little more real-time when it comes to adding final line work. Alright, well, as you can see, doing the fur, if you choose to try to represent the fur, it is kind of an endurance test. You know, it's a real test of your patience, and I suppose the one thing I would say is that, you know, my approach is to do lots of short little back and forth movements of my pencil to try to simulate that really short fur, which again is something that I noticed in photographs, that the short fur seemed to extend almost over the entire head and even up onto the back. You know, it's not a leopard is not an animal with really long tufts of fur, but rather this very, almost, you know, reminds me of like a crew cut or something, you know, military kind of super short hair. Well, it's time for me to pull out my trusty black Prismacolor, and you know, I just thought I'd do a little bit of this real time. Maybe talk mainly about the importance of getting contrast in almost any work of art. If you have bold blacks and then very bright whites, it improves the look of your illustration. But I would say with an illustration of a leopard that it's particularly crucial to have your blacks get really black, and that's why I'm using this really just ordinary black colored pencil. I've, you know, said again and again the name of this pencil. It is a Prismacolor Black PC 935. It's not a magical special pencil. It's just a quality colored pencil. So you don't have to go to the Prismacolor company if you're in a different country, or you know, you can't get hold of Prismacolors. Just make sure you get something that's of some quality, and it'll provide you with a good bold black. And I think that's really just the key to making the illustration pop and seem more three-dimensional. I would say mainly, you know, your goal is maintaining patience, and don't feel that you have to complete the illustration in one sitting. You can take breaks. You can, you know, spread it out over a number of days. Keep coming back to it little by little. You know, a lot of these people who do photorealism, that's what they're doing. They're, you know, they're spending weeks on a single painting or whatever. They're taking breaks. They're coming back. So anyway, sadly, I do believe that I am going to have to once again kick it back into time-lapse. Going to finish up all this stuff with the black Prismacolor, and then we'll come back with a little white gouache to finish off the illustration. Alright, well, we're finally near the ending stages here. A lot of times people want to know, how long did it take me to do the illustration? And, you know, I started this at around 8 o'clock this morning. It's 12 noon now, so about 4 hours that I've put into this illustration. We're not quite done, though, because I need to bring out my beloved white gouache, and I'm going to attempt to add whiskers down here. In fact, making that very bold black will hopefully allow these to stand out by way of contrast. Now, it is sort of nerve-wracking to try to do this with paint, because, you know, you only get one go, basically. And if you don't get it quite right, you're a little bit stuck with it. So I'm going to do a few of these live, but I may sort of allow myself to complete the process in time-lapse. But I did want to point out a couple of other uses for the white gouache. Get some reflections on the eyes. I think a bit of reflected light there will add to the shininess, the sort of glassiness of those eyes. Don't want to overdo it. And then I felt that the this area of whiteness near the eyes could be, you could even add to that a little bit and suggest fur. In fact, other areas like near the ears, as I said, quite a lot of tufts of fur or little strands of hair that are becoming visible there. So you kind of get the basic idea. Really sorry that I can't do more of this real time, but yeah, 4 hours. What, I'm going to do a 4-hour video? You want me to do a 4-hour video? Come on, people. There are just limits to what can be done in terms of making videos that have a finished illustration this detailed. So bear with me. I'm going to bring back old man time-lapse. Get in here, man. Yeah, I'm here. I'm done with my coffee. To help me finish off this illustration, and then we'll be back with a few final words. Alright, well, there's my video on how to draw a leopard. Let me know what you thought about it, and also let me know if there are any other animals that you'd like me to draw in future videos. I'd be happy to do more such videos like this one in the months ahead. But for now, let me thank anyone who has supported me by getting any of my books, like Brody's Ghost or Miki Falls, my 2 graphic novel series. Book 6, the final book in the series, finally out and available, Mastering Manga and Mastering Manga 2. And now, my very newest book, The Realism Challenge. Big thanks to anyone who purchased this book within the last week. It's been wonderful to see people responding to it positively. But I think it's time for me to lay down this pencil. I want to thank you all for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and I'll be back with another one real soon.